Hi, this is Brett Ingram, entrepreneur and award-winning product creator. And today, I want to share with you how the new Google search algorithm impacts your business, your website, and your content. Now, everybody wants to be on page one of Google, or, at least somewhere near the top. Because when you're on Google at the top, basically what's happening is people are searching for whatever keywords they're looking for. They see your website, they see your product, they see your offers, and they click through, and you're getting targeted traffic that's absolutely free, and it comes in day after day after day. So what's better than that? If you have to buy traffic, obviously it makes things a lot more expensive, and it makes it a lot more difficult to be effective. If you're getting free traffic, it doesn't really matter. And on top of it, it's targeted because people were searching for exactly what you want. So the benefits of being on the top of Google search are well known, right? There's something that everybody aspires to get if they're involved at all in search engines, search engine optimization, and wanting to get their content ranked. And for the most part, anyone who's making any kind of content feels that way. I mean, even if you have a corporate website, you still want it to come up near the top when people do a search for something that's related to your business. So there's no questioning the value of being able to be on the top of a Google search. The amount of traffic that flows through there, is, just absolutely insane. So you can make get a tremendous amount of free traffic, tremendous amount of leads, sales, and everything else. The challenge is it's super competitive because everybody wants to be there. So everybody understands that, look, if we do some search engine optimization here, we could pay for ads. And if we pay for ads, we have to constantly be optimizing and constantly making sure that we're making more than we're spending. Or we could spend time doing SEO, content marketing, search engine optimization, and if we can get to the top of Google, we're all set because that traffic's going to come in every single day. We don't need to worry about it. Plus, you don't have to necessarily spend money on SEO if you want to do the work yourself, whereas for ads, there's no other choice. You have to pay for them. That's the only way that you can get them. And so the benefits are obvious, right? And, Google uses algorithms to decide what search results appear where and what is most relevant. So basically the idea is, Google is making their own decision when someone types in a keyword, what results to show them. And they're basing it on an algorithm that they create. It's basically just a mathematical formula that takes a look at various metrics about a website. They consider things like, how fast the page loads, what the keywords are, what the authority ranking is, how many backlinks it's got. There's a bunch of different things. And so the funny thing about SEO or search engine optimization as sort of an industry is that, and I've seen this evolve over the last 15 years, and it's incredible. When people first realized the value of being able to be on the top of search engines, what happened was everybody started to figure out what it is that Google looks for, because in general, they don't publish it. They certainly don't publish the entire algorithm because they know people would just go ahead and figure out what they're looking for, give it to them, and even if it wasn't real good content, it would be at the top. And if you're Google, you want to be providing relevant results to people because if they're typing in a search and getting a bunch of garbage in return, they're not going to use your search engine. So for Google to stay relevant and stay that important and have people going through them to find results, they have to be delivering targeted results that people want. And for people to get to on those high-ranking positions, they need to have the content that they think Google thinks is valuable to visitors. And so around and around we go. So SEO, for all this time since the advent of search engines, has tried to decode or reverse engineer whatever that algorithm is to optimize rankings. So what happened was people started to work on things and realized, oh geez, keywords are really important. So in the early game, they would keyword stuff pages. Just put a ton of keywords and they'd put it the same color as the background. So to the naked eye, you couldn't see that those keywords were on the page, but Google would scrape the page and say, wow, this is keyword-rich content, rank it at the top. Then they got smart, they made an adjustment, and obviously that didn't work. So then it became about backlinks. So then everybody was trying to go out and get backlinks. They were selling and buying backlinks to their site, because the higher authority site that links to your site, the more, rank juice you'd get from that, and you shoot way up doing that. So people try that, and then they realize, well, that's not. So Google is constantly going around and around, and the SEO people are constantly going around and around in a game of cat and mouse. And so the SEO people, some of them are doing it authentically and really trying to give search engines the real content and just optimizing it the right way. But other people are trying to do it in a black hat or a gray hat way, where they're trying to game the system. They're trying to decode whatever the algorithm is and create websites with that, built in, so they automatically rank high. The challenge with that is it's only ever going to be short term, because Google is not going to stop evolving. They're not going to stop making updates and making changes. They publish updates all the time. The interesting thing about this newer one, though, is that, they actually were a little bit transparent about some of the stuff they did, which is fascinating, because oftentimes it's all black box. They don't want to reveal a lot. They just want to tell people it's to give people a better search experience. Well, sure it is. But at the same time, we know that there's certain things that they're doing that then, if you understand, you can optimize your site, optimize your business, optimize your content to take advantage of that. And that's really the key. Because if you're Google, you don't want people gaming the system. You don't want them finding a hack that's going to allow them to create a phony website that just generates a ton of traffic. Because when people search and click on that, they're going to be upset that they got scammed into clicking on something that isn't legit. So, as a systems technology issue, this is an unavoidable game of cat and mouse. It's never going to stop. Google is always going to be making updates. SEO is always going to be optimizing for those updates and trying to figure out what changes need to be made. And so that's basically the way that it works. But it's still important, to know that they try to penalize and will if they can. So in general, my personal take is that a real approach to SEO, a real approach to content, is the smarter game to play. You're going to do the work regardless. You're going to do all the other things regardless. And so who wants to build something, feel really good about it, and then wake up in the morning and find out that you've been dropped off the rankings entirely? And by the way, I've known this to happen to people. I've known people that have built their entire business on SEO black hat techniques, and they were, pounding their chest and doing a victory lap when they were at the top of the search engine making a fortune. And then they stared in horror at their stats when they woke up the morning that Google published the update that literally dropped them off the search engine entirely, because they realized that what they were doing wasn't something that was legitimate. So that's a tough place to build your business if it's something that you depend on, because you never know. Now, look, in all honesty and fairness, it can happen with legitimate content too. You can move up and down. There are fluctuations. But the reality of it is, if we know that what Google is looking for is authentic content, and we know that what they want is stuff that people want to read, see, and consume, then if we're creating that stuff, in general, we have nothing to worry about. We might need to be able to make some edits here, tweaks there, changes, and we might see our rankings fluctuate, but over time, we're going to generate good rankings because we're creating real stuff. And that's my take on it anyway. So recently, Google introduced another update. And while sometimes they are very secretive about it, this time they actually shared, at least with the main ideas. I mean, they're not going to open up the secret formula and tell you all of the answers to the test. But at the same time, they want people to be aware of the direction that things are heading. So the question is, what is that update? What does it mean? And how will it impact our businesses? How will it impact our websites? And how will it impact our content? Because whether or not we're engaged in the business of trying to do SEO and search engine rankings, it's important to know this stuff because it's a great source of free traffic. And if we could tap into that, fantastic. So the new update actually includes a number of changes that they publicized. And these, by the way, there are different levels of updates. Sometimes they do little tweaks, and it's sort of like an operating system on your computer. Sometimes it's like a minor tweak or a bug fix. Other times it's a full upgrade or an overhaul. This was a change to their core ranking algorithm, which means this is significant, it's likely permanent, and it's likely to just get expanded. It's not going to go away or get smaller anytime soon. So one of the things that they publicized that they did is something called a personalization feature. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it easier to find personal perspectives. So if somebody has a blog, or they have a post, or they have an article, and it's something that they wrote about their own opinion, their own experience, those kinds of things, they're more likely to get ranked. That's going to be considered more valuable content than somebody who's reposting an article, even if it's from somebody famous or somebody great, is the way that, that seems to be interpreted. And so they want to prioritize content that it has first-hand knowledge. So in other words, anything that you know, anything that you've experienced, anything that you share from your own perspective is all first-hand knowledge. Anything that you're basically just regurgitating, anything that you're basically taking and summarizing, or you're taking somebody else's information and you're just sort of repurposing it for your own use, those are all things that they're sort of deprioritizing, because they realize that if they show a search result for, just say, SEO optimization, and the first 6 articles are all things repeating the same thing that somebody else already said, is that really useful to a visitor? I mean, a visitor goes in there to see, how do I do search engine optimization? And the first 6 articles or first 6 websites are all things that are just regurgitating the same data that somebody else already had. It's kind of lame. I mean, it doesn't really make the search engine that valuable to somebody. If, on the other hand, you have a search engine expert who's giving, their 6 tips, and then you have a search engine, guru here who's, giving their proven formula for it, and then you have a search engine company that does search engine optimization. Well, now, you've got some content in there that actually makes sense, that you can actually learn from, and that you can actually gather some intel from and value. It's funny because I did an episode not that long ago, and the episode was about, being a little bit creative with searches for things that you want. There were things I wanted to learn how to do. And when I did my initial searches online, what I found was sort of a bunch of junk. They were either ads or they were just things for, sort of generic ideas. And again, I saw a lot of repetition. I saw it myself. And what I found was, as I started to dig a little bit further, and I went on to the second page, and I went on to the third page, and I started to do more targeted searches with a little bit more specifics and things like that, what I found is I found these articles and I found these resources that were really amazing, really informative. I found tools that I could use online that I couldn't find on the first page. I couldn't find when I was looking generically. Once I got more specific, boom, they all popped up. And so for me, I could see that being valuable. I could see that stuff rising to the top. And so I advised on that episode the idea of sort of being a detective when you're in the search engine. Instead of just typing in your one search, seeing the results and going, there's nothing really there, think it through a little bit more. What are other ways I could ask this? What are other ways that I could search for this to get what I want? Because there's always more than one angle to look at. And once you start to do that, I was doing that about podcasts. And if you look up, what makes a successful podcast, or, how many downloads is good or whatever, a lot of people are going to have an opinion, and a lot of it is repeat. When you start to dig in a little bit more detail and you start to give more specifics, like with a daily podcast, like how many episodes or downloads or whatever, you start to uncover more and more unique resources that have different takes and different opinions and different data, knowledge, and information. And that's where the real value is. And I think what Google's trying to do is raise that stuff to the top. So it's easily accessible, and we don't need to dig so much to find what it is that we want and what it is that we need. So that's pretty cool. The second thing that they're doing is they're adding a new, follow button for topics. So now, if there's something that you're interested in, what they've realized is, generally, if you're into bird watching, or birding, I guess, as they call it, then chances are you're going to do more than one search in your lifetime about birding or bird watching or big ear or whatever else online. And when you start to do that, instead of starting from scratch each time, what they're going to allow you to do is put a follow button on certain topics. and it will track new content, and it will track reputable, experts and people with unique opinions and ideas, and surface those to the top when you do your searches. So they're trying to make it also so we're able to find more targeted content for the stuff that we want. So again, you can see how this plays in, and I'll talk about how that impacts everything in a minute. But it's super important to understand, because once we understand what they're trying to do and where they're going with this, we know how to position ourselves. So to sort of understand this from their perspective, Kathy Edwards, who's a vice president of search at Google, she said, search has always been about connecting human curiosity with the incredible expanse of human wisdom on the web. So basically what they're saying is Google wants people's experiences, advice, opinions, and knowledge to be prioritized instead of rehashed, reposted, or repeat content. And this makes a ton of sense. And if you're somebody who's genuinely interested in making content and you are worried about needing to compete against all the bots and everything else, this should be music to your ears. Because what this means is if you're spending the time to make real content, that should benefit you in the long run. That should be a positive thing, because we all want that. There is massive wisdom online. I, am not a handy person at all. I am, no good fixing things or tinkering with things. I'm the guy that when I build the IKEA dresser using the instructions, I put the back on the front and the front on the back, and then I got to undo it and stuff like that, even though there's directions for it. So I'm not handy. But I have to say, since being able to do searches, I can find a video on YouTube for how to replace my faucet, and I've done that. I installed my own garage door opener, which is miraculous when I think about it, because I'm not handy at all. But I did it by watching videos. Sure, I read the instruction book, but I watched other people do it that know what they're doing, and I was able to sort of model what they were doing and follow that. So there's massive wisdom from the mundane to the profound and everywhere in between. And some of it is, stuff that we find really valuable. Some of it's entertaining or whatever. But if it's unique, that's the thing that's cool. And when AI first started to really explode months and months ago, I actually did an episode then, and I predicted that what would happen is there would be a preference for unique individual content. And that would only become more prevalent since AI exploded, because the first sort of gut reaction to AI was shock. This is going to completely make irrelevant everybody's content, because now everyone's going to be able to make it by typing in a couple of words into an AI bot that's going to generate all the content. Well, yes and no. It's true, you can create well-crafted content, syntactically correct, grammatically correct, all that good stuff, but it doesn't have any human experience. It doesn't have an opinion. It's just data, it's just information. So it doesn't mean it's devoid of any value, but it lacks the humanness that gives us the richness about being alive. What is valuable about when I read someone's article or I listen to their podcast or watch their video is not just the content. It's their take on it. It's their experience. It's their, stories about, how they've experienced these things and what they've gone through in their life. We all have a unique individual human story, and there's value in that. And that's what this prioritizes, and that has me very excited, because I think that is where the future of this should go. We shouldn't be run by bots. We should be dealing with personal relationships and sharing each other's experiences and learning from each other. So what does this ultimately mean for us, right? What it means is that if we are in the business of creating content, unique, real content, when I make a podcast, I might take a look at some ideas for episodes, but I don't use AI to create my scripts or, anything else. You're not listening to a bot with like a face pasted on it. It's really me. It's really me talking. And a lot of it is sort of off the cuff and improv with a few bullet points to make sure I have some structure so I don't ramble aimlessly and so I actually give you some value. But I'm trying to share my experiences in a personal way and my background, because I've been doing what I've been doing for 15 years, and I believe there's value in that. Whatever you've been doing a lot in your life, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's a hobby, it doesn't matter. There's value in that. There's experience from that people would love to learn from you. Create original, unique content. Yes, it's time consuming, but enjoy it. Love the process. Because when you do that, it's not work anyway. It's fun. I love doing these. I hope you get value from them. I'm so thankful that you would tune in and listen. Because, if there's anything that I can impact, if there's any way that I can help, or there's any distinction I can help make for people, I'm thrilled about that. Because I love that when I find that in other people myself. So the takeaway here is whether our goal is to optimize SEO and get on page 1 of Google's search engine rankings, or if we're focused more just on building an audience around our message, our brand, our products and services, it's clear that original content is the key and the way of the future. While it may be tempting to use AI or curated content as a shortcut, ultimately, it's pretty risky because that kind of content will be penalized and hurt search engine rankings and traffic. It takes more time and work to create our own content, but it's also a lot more rewarding in more ways than one.